We've gathered 3 professional chefs to blind taste test every chocolate chip cookie dough and mix we could get our hands on to see which ones meet their standards. Nestlé Toll House Chocolate Chip Lovers Cookie Dough.
Right off the bat, I could tell that these are the square bakes.
Definitely a break and bake cookie.
You've got that nice sort of tan, been in the sun a little bit, kind of a color, which I love.
My idea of a perfect chocolate chip cookie is a crisp exterior with a very chewy, warm, gooey interior.
It shatters a little bit when you bite into it, and then your teeth just kind of sink after that.
I would love to have real chocolate.
You want the chocolate to be able to stand on its own.
Perfect chocolate chip cookie should be at least 40% chocolate.
The right amount of sweet, but also the right amount of salty.
You want to have balance. So this cookie has a bit of a crisp exterior, which is nice. The inside's a little drier than I would like.
The ratio of flour to butter seems a little bit too high for me, so it's coming off a little dry, and I could kind of taste the flour.
This cookie also, to me, tastes like it has a lot of white sugar in it and not as much brown sugar. If you have less brown sugar and less molasses, you by definition are going to have less moisture.
I'm not so sure I love the chocolate. I don't really want to eat a ton of it on its own. When you get a morsel, it's like extra sweet.
Mass-produced chocolate chips tend to have more emulsifiers and additives. If you can take a chocolate chip out of a cookie and crumble it like this, it tends to not necessarily be the highest quality chocolate.
I'm pretty sure it's a Toll House cookie. Okay.
Nestlé Toll House.
I was right.
This, for a long time, was considered the gold standard of chocolate chip cookie in America.
This one says it has chunks. They are liars. There's not one chunk in here. False advertising. I'm emailing.
King Arthur Baking Company outrageous chocolate chip mix.
It's a little blonde, so I think it's got some bleached white flour in there.
Ooh, kind of dry.
It kind of has like a pliable, crispy outside.
Lots of chocolate chips in here.
This one actually does have a chunk in it.
No. Immediately no. Very dry. Different types of flour have different levels of protein. And protein is what makes things chewy or make things tough. So a higher protein flour is going to give you something that probably tastes a little bit more like this, which is a little bit tougher.
It doesn't have a ton of color, and the fact that it's kind of hard indicates that they used white sugar.
There's like a white note to it, white sugar, white flour. It doesn't have a lot of complexity.
The chocolate is really sweet. Chocolate that has more sugar tends to have less cocoa in it. This feels like more sweet, lower percentage chocolate.
Oh, kick off
Arthur,
though.
Yes.
Yikes, I talked some shit.
They also bake their cookies at a much higher temperature than we would normally do. And I wonder if that's also kind of lends to the drying out and becoming crispy faster.
I am a huge fan of King Arthur.
Love King Arthur flour.
Phenomenal flour, but not in chocolate chip cookie.
Trader Joe's super chocolatey chocolate chunk cookie dough.
First impressions of this cookie, it's starting to look a little bit more like what I want in a cookie. Listen to that. Chocolate chips on the bottom, we see chocolate chunks on the top.
A lot more chew inside, which I love.
The brown sugar makes it like a chewier that's gonna stay, sort of like caramel.
It also has a little hint of salt, which I like.
The flavors are sticking around a little bit longer in my mouth.
The chocolate quality in this is definitely better than the Toll House.
The chocolate's a little bit darker.
Even though it's a like room temperature cookie, it is still able to melt.
Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's.
Look at you, Trader Joe's. It's unbleached enriched flour. So if it's unbleached, there's a natural aging process where air ages, bleaches, and gets the wheat to where it needs to be flour. Bleached flour has an accelerated process because additives are used to get a lighter color and a little bit of a lighter texture.
Baking powder, baking soda, which is also a good thing to have baking powder and baking soda. Baking powder poofs, baking soda spreads.
Overall, not bad. I would say so far this one might be leading the pack.
Pillsbury chocolate chip cookie dough.
Super round, suspiciously round.
This one's really flat.
It's almost like a Florentine. It's like so you can kind of like see through it.
The chips almost like poke out of it because it spread so much.
Probably has too much wet ingredients in it, so it's not holding together as well.
It looks like it wants to crisp, but it's still soft.
Balance is off in this one. Wrong amount of chocolate, a little too wet, not crispy enough. A bit more flour added to it would kind of help it hold together.
It's quite sweet, which also makes sense when you get a cookie this thin. It probably has a little more white sugar in it.
This is okay.
This cookie has a very nostalgic taste for me, which makes me think that it might be white fat guy. What is that? Pillsbury? Pillsbury.
Oh,
Log. Right. Look at this.
Safe to eat raw. Wow, they really market it to people. Maybe that's why the cookie looks like that, because there might not be eggs in here.
Palm oil. Palm oil alarms me. It's definitely more affordable than butter. And if you're producing as much cookie dough as the Doughboy's producing, I would imagine that that's a huge consideration. There's also very little egg in here.
The eggs act as a binder in the cookie dough. So seeing that this cookie is super flat, I understand why.
Dolly Parton's chocolate chip cookie mix.
It actually has a lot of chocolate chips.
You see these brown edging on the side? This is telling me that it's either all white sugar, tons of butter, which, look at my hands, I'm right, it's tons of butter.
Definitely crisp on the edges.
Nice chew in the middle, too.
Has a little bit more of the brown sugar, which I actually like.
For me, the cookie's too soft. So if there's more brown sugar, there's more molasses. I think it tipped the scales a little bit too much.
There's definitely some salt in here. It's not giving that overly manufactured cookie taste, which is rather surprising.
Some of the ingredients feel like they're of better quality. The chocolate's not bad.
I'm impressed. This is a store-bought cookie.
I would guess that it's a Duncan Hines kind of a box mix. Oh, it is a box mix.
Dolly Parton!
It's giving me a little like easy bake oven almost, you know, in a positive way.
Brown sugar, yeah, and that's interesting. It's the second ingredient listed.
Betty Crocker chocolate chip cookie mix.
Whoa. Hi, sad little guy.
This one's really thin. Lot of spread.
Every bite deserves a chocolate chip. It's all just scrunched together.
It feels a little bit dry, just when something snaps like that.
It kind of just bends. Very sad.
It's weak. This cookie is weak.
Sometimes when you put a lot of vanilla into a cookie, it starts to taste a little bit more like cake. This tastes like cake.
It is really quite sweet. Pretty bland.
Having a mix of flours, I like to use a mix of AP flour and bread flour, helps give it a little bit more structure so you don't have that flat landing cookie.
The finer and the thinner at room temperature a fat is, the finer and thinner your cookie's gonna be. That really affects your cookie a lot.
It kind of tastes like I'm eating a packet of white sugar that's been bound together with some egg.
It doesn't have a lot of depth of taste, which to me says it's probably a lot of white sugar.
She's not chewy, she's not crispy, she doesn't have any color. She's Betty Crocker. Oh. She's Betty Crocker. Yeah.
I definitely like this one the least so far.
Jacques Torres chocolate chip cookie mix.
Ooh, she's a big girl.
Whoa, this is what I'm talking about. Look at this. This is the size you want your chocolate chip cookie.
And it's got this good kind of rippling on the surface. It usually means that there's a good chewy texture on the inside.
What's interesting is if you see the back of the cookie, you can see it's like massive pools of chocolate. Typically with chocolate chips, there are emulsifiers and stabilizers in the chocolate chip that it's gonna keep the shape of the chocolate chip even when it's baked at a high temperature. When you see something like this sort of like ooey gooey situation, it typically means that it's not a standard chocolate chip.
F-E-V-E-S, Feves.
And those are like almost like discs.
That's what you want in a chocolate chip cookie.
It's very good.
That is 80% chocolate.
There's so much chocolate inside that it is chewy because you're biting into soft chocolate. So I almost can't tell what the dough is like.
I actually don't want any dough.
It's actually really good chocolate. That shininess in your chocolate says that it's got the cocoa butter in it.
There definitely is such a thing as too much chocolate. If I wanted a chocolate bar, I would buy a chocolate bar.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
It's Jacques Torres.
The number one ingredient in the mix is chocolate.
Look at those chocolate chunks, yes.
Capello's gluten and dairy-free chocolate chip cookie dough.
What a contrast. We went from like, oh, to like, oh.
This one's very small.
This looks gluten-free. And then I would put money on it too that it might be vegan.
It smells like it's got maple syrup or an alternative sweetener.
A lot of vegan recipes don't use white sugar. The way it's manufactured, it gets ground down with bone.
Ooh, it's super like soft. Ooh. Man down. I say this in the nicest way possible. This tastes healthy.
Kind of tastes like a granola bar. Maybe there's some oat flour or almond meal.
It's heavy on the salt, which I appreciate.
It's not as sweet. It's pretty dry.
The chocolate chips are quite lovely.
It's some of the better chocolate. Is a little bitter, probably to help kind of mask a little bit of what the other ingredients are that are in there.
It's not my favorite.
Ooh,
Capello's grain-free, vegan, paleo, gluten-free. Good luck.
that's a lot of free. There's some almond flour and maple syrup, which I got immediately on the nose.
It says that they split the almond using the protein, fiber, and healthy fats in almonds to create cookie dough, unlike any other. They're not wrong.
Into it, yeah. Would I buy it? No, I'm not gluten-free.
Ghirardelli dark chocolate chip cookie mix.
This is a cute cookie, but is it chocolate chip? How do we know it's chocolate chip?
All of the chocolate chips are hidden, which means the dough is probably pretty thick.
The outside is pretty, like, crisp. Inside is definitely soft.
It's a super chewy cookie.
Come on, this is really sad. If I got this, I would write a strong email.
This is probably the least chocolatey.
Yo.
It's a good cookie.
Oh my God, the texture is really delightful. I love the flavor. You can definitely taste the vanilla in it.
This has a lot of vanilla in it. Tastes like birthday cake.
The cookie itself is doing its job, but there is not enough chocolate in this cookie.
Is this Ghirardelli? Because of the chips. They're big chips. That's Ghirardelli's thing.
Ghirardelli! Oh, and it's a dark chocolate chip.
I expect more from you. There's not a lot of chocolate in here.
The chocolate is a pretty good chocolate.
They make a lot of different types of chocolate, and in here, it seems like there's only semi-sweet chocolate chips, which is kind of disappointing.
Bro, there's no chocolate chips in here.
Bob's Red Mill gluten-free chocolate chip cookie mix.
Okay, we have another tiny cookie.
It's a little crispier on the edges.
Crispy on the outside.
Maybe gonna be a little dry.
This cookie is very sweet, and it tastes like it has almond in it.
So I'm gonna say that this one might be gluten-free too.
There's a residue or powdery something that's coming off my fingers.
Not super chewy.
Not the kind of crunch you want because it's a crunch that sort of feels like dry.
Bob Mills. Yeah. Oh yeah, I said it. Bob Red Mills.
It's Bob's Red Mill, and it is gluten-free.
Oh, it's rice flour. That's what that is.
They do such a good job of masking that, and the chocolate chips are probably like decent quality because they don't have a ton of extra ingredients to them. Okay for a gluten-free.
Whole Foods 365 chocolate chip cookie mix.
Definitely looks like it has a lot of white sugar in it. Has kind of like that sheen.
We're in the not so many chips portion of the tasting experience.
Oh, I love that chocolate hole. That's always cute.
This is super chewy. Almost kind of like a raw taste to it.
I'm trying to figure out what that flavor is.
It's a little chemically. It has like a saltiness on the back end that's not delicious.
There's a very unnatural flavor in there.
I don't taste any vanilla in here, and I miss it.
She's a basic quality chocolate.
And then there's not enough chocolate, so the texture's completely off. Yeah.
It's not chewy. It's not crunchy. It's kind of just there.
And I don't want to eat anymore.
This would be a cookie I wouldn't remember, and that makes me sad.
365 Whole Foods brand. Not loving this one.
One of the ingredients in here is a natural flavor.
It's usually produced in a lab.
The fact that they are saying to add water is blasphemy. If you need a liquid in your cookie dough, why wouldn't you add milk, cream? Why wouldn't you add something a little bit more flavorful other than water? No.
Sweet Loren's gluten and dairy-free chocolate chunk cookie dough.
This looks like a play cookie, like a little cookie for your little doll.
And it is a little gray. I'm not loving the color.
It just looks so anemic.
It also has a sandier texture than some of the other ones have had. The flavor's not as bad as the color.
There's a tiny shell of a crisp outside and a totally different texture inside.
It's pretty soft, but not in the most pleasant way.
I like this chocolate. Gives it a nice balance of bittersweetness.
This definitely seems like a chopped chocolate that gets tossed in, which is what I really look for and appreciate in a cookie.
I say Sweet Loren's? Maybe Sweet Loren's. Sweet Loren's, look at that. She's using a flour blend that has oat, tapioca, and potato.
Oat was maybe the thing that has a little bit of that texture to it.
Great value, ready to bake cookie dough.
This is the cutest little cookie.
It smells really chocolatey.
It also kind of smells like butter, but that might be more like butter flavor, like at a movie theater.
This is Chips Ahoy.
That butter flavor hangs around a little bit. Definitely something in there that's not the most pleasant.
This is too crunchy for my taste.
It's a little crisp and a little chew. There's some good browning.
It definitely has a nice sort of sugary, caramelized taste to it. I would imagine there's brown sugar and or molasses in this cookie, which I like.
It has a lot of chocolate. I like the ratio.
The chocolate tastes pretty good.
It's a little sweet. It's hitting my teeth in a way that's a little painful.
Am I right?
Great value, Walmart.
It's not a bad cookie.
It's really soft. I'm noticing that in here, which means that it has a lot of additional ingredients keeping it nice and tender straight from the refrigerator because it's also cold.
I will say there's a lot more ingredients in this than a lot of the others, so that's not great.
Ascorbic acid added as a dough conditioner. It's for more mass-produced things that are passing through machines. That's an ingredient that's keeping it kind of tender. Can definitely impart an unpleasant flavor.
Krusteaz, triple chocolate chunk.
So this little guy has not that many chocolate chips in it.
It's kind of got this netting on the top from the sugar, maybe a little too much.
I wouldn't say that there's a crispiness to the outside at all.
Texture's not great.
It's soft.
I think it might have cake flour or another kind of soft white flour. There's not the same kind of density or chewiness that you want from a chocolate chip cookie.
Barely even taste the chocolate, which doesn't seem to be the best quality.
This one tastes a little unbalanced to me. Kind of hits you with sugar, and everything else sort of follows after.
Lots of vanilla. It's more vanilla than it is chocolate.
No personality.
Oh,
I've heard of
Krusteaz.
these. It wasn't crusty.
They're more well known for their biscuits. 3 kinds of chocolate, it says. Triple. I'm not gonna say that was something that I noticed.
Stonewall Kitchen, classic chocolate chip cookie mix.
Okay, last cookie.
This cookie smells really good.
You can see the sugar crystals still.
And it is pretty dry.
So definitely a little bit of resistance when I broke it open. So there's a hint of that crunchy crispiness on the outside. It tastes very generic.
Not a lot of complexity.
It's a really, really dry cookie. You can see there's a lot of air pockets inside, and air is the enemy of pastry.
Since it's so dry, do you want a glass of milk?
Ooh, maybe. This kind of cookie might be like a good dipping cookie.
This is perfect for dipping.
The milk helps a little.
It makes it better.
And the milk, perfect. Outside of the milk, needs milk.
The chocolate itself is pretty good, but it doesn't matter how good the chocolate is if what's enrobing it is just dry and a little bit lacking in personality.
Stonewall Kitchen.
I think they do jams, kind of nicer jams and things. So this one's trying to be kind of a nicer cookie, but I'm not as convinced. I'm sorry.
They have the least amount of ingredients. Mixes have less preservatives than the pre-made doughs because, once you add liquid to any dry ingredient, everything's gonna start to break down. I would highly recommend make them the day before, the night before, and let them age so you have that chance for everything to be hydrated.
Now let's see which cookies our chefs like the most and the least.
My favorite cookie today was Jacques Torres.
It's the closest to the ideal cookie that I had today.
It is nice and big with a crispy exterior and a nice soft middle.
It has the best quality chocolate in it.
My favorite cookie today was the Pillsbury log of dough. It just stood the test of time, and I think memories and food are so inextricably linked.
My least favorite cookie today was the Whole Foods 365. It had an unpleasant smell and a lingering taste that I did not enjoy. I would rather have the paleo vegan cookie.
That little hockey puck from the woods, whatever that was, Capello's.
I mean, King Arthur and Stonewall, I'm bummed about those two.
The lesson here today, kids, is that there are some good cookies, there are some bad cookies, there are some tough cookies.
Finding your perfect one is maybe an endless search.